for this afternoon's interview. I was asked to talk with you about Yugoslav literature. Of course, we're very conscious that we're talking about the literature of a country which does not exist any longer. I wonder if you were born in Yugoslavia in the first place. Were you?
I still were, yeah. I was born in 1986.
All right, so shortly before the dissolution.
Shortly before, yeah. I still remember the events of the war.
You do remember them?
Yeah. It was, for a kid, it was, especially for a Slovenian kid, because we didn't have any of the really bad things happening. And it was, I remember it as a kind of an exciting time, you know. Everybody was at home, nobody went to work, and so all the family was gathered, and we were out and about. It was summer, we were having fun, and then, you know, the sirens started blasting, and they picked the kids up and ran to the shelter and stuff like that. But I didn't understand the gravity of the situation at the time. It was just, you know, just another thing in the life, you know. But then when I got a bit older and you started seeing the news, what was happening in Sarajevo, and that's when the reality of the situation kind of sunk in, exactly.
So we're going to talk about Slovenia, and allow me to make this proviso, because unfortunately we always need to do this. We're talking about Slovenia, not about Slovakia. They are two distinct countries with very similar names and very similar flags. So
we both call each other,
Slovens,
Slovenets.
And so we're talking about Slovenia, which was part of Yugoslavia, a state which was formed and dissolved and formed again, and eventually it was dissolved thanks to Slovenia in 1991. But it was a state which was basically a conglomeration of republics. The main ones were Slovenia, Serbia, and Croatia. The last Yugoslavia was set up in 1943, if I get my history correct. And it was dissolved bit by bit, although Slovenia had only a war which lasted 10 days, but the other republics had a very tragic
experience
of the dissolution of the state. We'll come to that later on. Basically, the thing which I find very interesting in how Slovenia became a separate country state was that the move towards independence was mostly ignited by the intellectual circle of the Nova Revija and their ideas of a new Slovenia. So it was, before it was a political move, it was an intellectual move and an artistic move. Could you tell us something about this?
Yeah, that's the history of this question of who caused what, how did it came to happen is still a political question today. There are still different points of view, different political intentions behind it. The way somebody wants to frame it like this, somebody like that, and the version I was taught. I studied history, and it's not like the version I was taught. I was presented with a lot of, you know, information, and then kind of was expected to figure things out for myself. But one of the main narratives in Slovenia is that obviously when Tito died, there was in 81 or so, we didn't have this figure to, you know, kind of bring everybody together. And immediately, different political and economical situations of the republic started coming to the forefront. You know, I mean, in Slovenia, there was this narrative, oh, we're working so much and it all goes to the south. And in the south, it was, oh, they're robbing us blind, you know, whatever. Everybody, each republic kind of started pushing the narrative of interest towards its own side. And of course, that harmed the what was once the unity of the country. But the main thing that happened was that started pushing the intellectuals towards this visions of nationalism was actually began in Serbia. There was this memorandum of the Serbian Academy of Sciences and the Arts in which they called for a national language for Yugoslavia. And obviously when intellectuals in the other republics heard about that, everybody was like, no, wait, we have our own language, maybe we should do stuff like that. And then Nova Revija, the Niko Grafenauer and Boris Anovac and all those, the poets and the professors, the academia, they started thinking about how to respond to that, and they responded with this issue of the Nova Revija. That was, I'm not going to remember the number right now, in which they called, in a similar manner to the Serbian memorandum, for a Slovene language that's going to constitute us. And obviously this was such a big departure from what Yugoslavia was that, you know, it kind of set things in motion. Everybody started moving, and then politics obviously got into the mess, and everything went downhill.
Maybe it's not really fair with our audience because we're talking about Nova Revija, and maybe you could tell us something about what Nova Revija was.
Yeah, no, I mean, Nova Revija was a literary review, just basically composed of intellectuals, Slovene intellectuals at that time. They were all famous at that point, you know, kind of in their 40s, 50s, well-established poets and scholars and stuff like that. And yeah, as I said, in response to the Serbian movements regarding national languages and stuff, they kind of went into action on their own, published this thing. In this edition of the review, they called for the language and for how will we Slovenes continue to live in this country, what are our demands, in kind of reminiscent of our earlier independence movements in the 19th century. There was this thing called Slovenia Together in the 19th century when we were still in Austrian monarchy, Austrian Empire. They kind of picked up on that and again felt that, you know, something's up. There's time to ensure that Slovene culture, Slovene language continues to have a place under the sun as autonomously as possible.
Without going into the very minute intricacies of politics and what have you, but the fact that Nova Revija was such an influential phenomenon, and also the fact that, well, I'll come to this later, but does it show how respected the authors are in Slovenia or were in Slovenia?
I really have an itch right now to just be completely contrarian, but maybe that wouldn't be so respectful. But obviously, the written word has its weight also in politics, and that's obvious. But it's sometimes hard to see whether, you know, the historical forces start moving in one direction and then the intellectuals see what's happening and kind of respond to it, and then try to frame the issue in, oh, we were instrumental in this happening. Maybe they weren't instrumental, maybe they just accurately understood the historical moment. So even without their interventions, things would be going in that direction, but maybe they just, you know, kind of framed the issue in a more clear way, you know, just set up a way for the broader society to be able to, I don't know, respond to it, or, you know, they frame the narrative, and then okay, let's go along with that, because we see that changes are happening in any case.
Yes, but the thing is, I'm very much intrigued for reasons which, I mean, we can explain to you, but you don't know. But for reasons which are very Maltese, I am very much intrigued by the fact that your National Day happens to be the birthday of your national poet.
Yeah.
And that the main statue in the center of the capital city is the statue of your national poet.
Yeah.
I mean, our national poet got a statue which is literally hidden outside the capital city, and I won't go into the history of this blessed statue. But anyway, so the fact is that when inevitably I compare my country to yours, I can't not feel a certain envy. You know what I mean? Now my question is, am I right to feel this envy, or am I being too romantic myself?
I don't know. We were just talking yesterday at dinner. Your colleagues explained to me that there's a situation with the language in your schools, and something like that. I told them in Slovenia, I'm generally, I hate nationalism because it doesn't do good things. But in Slovenia, language is a point of pride, and that's why we have poets' statues on our main squares. Because I don't know, ever since Slovenians as a community of peoples have been talked about, the only thing we had to keep us together was the language. You know, we were in different empires through history, and we've always kind of strived for independence, and they always tried to shut us down. But eventually, this struggle that was going on basically just through language got us our own nation state. And if somebody would now today be like, oh, whatever, it's 21st century, we can all talk English, in Slovenia that gets you shut down pretty quickly. But there's this difference here. Malta is an island, first of all, so there's not that much, I guess, pressure from, in Slovenia we are close to huge countries like Italy, Austria, Hungary, and I think if we just let things go, everything could change in a decade or so. Whereas if you're in an island in the middle of the Mediterranean, even if you're a bit laxer about this language policing, things, the Maltese will still speak Maltese, I think.
Yeah. So we were talking about Yugoslavia. I mean, the subject of our interview is Yugoslavia. Nowadays, even your schooling system, when it comes to the teaching of literature, how much does Yugoslav read Serbian and Croatian and Bosnian Herzegovinian literature do you still study at school? Is there some kind of, a Yugoslav dome, or is it all?
Almost none. There was this, I think, conscious political project. We declared independence, and I think it was accepted from all political parties that we have to put some distance between Slovenia and the rest of the former republics, which is, I guess, understandable from a political standpoint, but now it's when those countries are coming to the European Union, it again seems kind of sad that, but they couldn't know what was going to happen, and obviously with the war and stuff. So there is not a lot of emphasis on Yugoslav idea of any kind. The curriculum of the literature that we read is, of course we have this I don't know, the Nobel Prize winner Ivo Andrić, we still read about that, and yeah, that is kind of part of a general, you know, awareness about literature, but to consciously in schools try to promote the idea that's long past.
So there's no such thing as Yugoslavia?
No, no such thing. I mean, I still speak and understand Serbo-Croatian. It comes natural to me. But my younger brothers, they talk to their peers in Croatia in English. They don't understand each other anymore. And even before, it was kind of Slovenes understood all the languages, whereas Slovene was not understood there. But we did have a project with the literary review that I helped found in the university. We were kind of the new generation, and after the fact of, you know, this whole political distancing and stuff like that, we were like, okay, enough. There's no more, I don't know what you want to call it, danger or whatever, that somebody is going to come and, you know, do us harm. So let's get together again. Let's see what our peers of our generation are writing in Croatia, in Serbia, in Montenegro, Macedonia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. And we kind of sent out the call. I mean, I maybe shouldn't put the we into it because I wasn't, I didn't put in a lot of work at the time, but yeah, my colleagues did. And they made, like, I think 2 or 3 issues that were focused on Balkans as a unity. Not Yugoslavia was not mentioned a lot. The Balkans was like, this is our place. These kids are, you know, our age, our peers. We understand them, they understand us. So yeah, let's talk. Let's keep the conversation going.
You mentioned the word generation, and another question I planned to ask you: is there such thing as generation gaps within the Slovenian corpus of literature, of writers, between your generation, you mentioned my generation, and the generation of writers who are older than you, and those who are even older than those older than you? Is there such thing? Because here we have this tendency, which I'm really tired of, but anyway, it's there, that when we talk about the history of literature, we divide it in generations, you know, this generation and the generation after independence, and then the generation after the generation of independence. How does it work in Slovenia?
It's quite similar, I would think. It's because obviously language is a political tool. Then you frame generations in terms of the political struggles that they went through. You know, and for those guys who went, you know, as we mentioned, Nova Revija, they're constituted generations because they went through a struggle with their art, with their thoughts, you know. And this struggle has been fought, it has been whatever, either won or lost, doesn't matter, but it has been fought, and it's no longer there for the, I don't know, the next generation of artists that come on the scene, and they have their own struggles, and if the struggle is broad enough to encompass all of them, and then there's this common struggle that constitutes another generation. There's no, I mean, generations are supposed to be, especially in the arts, they're supposed to be like aesthetic movements, completely independent on all the historical context and stuff like that, more a matter of taste or something, you know. A guy starts painting dots and everybody's like, yeah, this is good, and we have impressionists that. But in Slovenia it was like that, yeah. The older guys went through this whole project of the independence and they're really proud of it, and that's all good. The generation after that was like, okay, now we have this independence, what do we do with it? You know, are we now allowed to, because in Yugoslavia you weren't allowed to say crazy things in general. And then now, are we allowed to say it, or should we go like to intimacy and beauty? We don't have to fight anymore and stuff like that. And then we came on the scene and we were like, yeah, let's fight, you know? But not in a sense of let's change history, but let's make arts loud again, you know, not just something that's playing in the background while whatever is happening keeps happening.
At one point you said, because you know Slovenia is a small country next to large countries, of course we smile when you say that you come from a small country because we are microscopic then. What is I have the impression, but of course I may be wrong, that the art scene is basically concentrated in the capital, in Ljubljana. First of all, am I right?
It's changing with the advent of, you know, the social media and stuff like that. You can be anywhere and still be in Ljubljana, but yeah, it is. Ljubljana is very much the center. If they don't invite you to do a reading, then you're not kind of part of the national conversation, I would guess. But we have a lot of readings, so there's a lot of space in Ljubljana for everybody.
Yes, true. But what about the other cities? I mean, writers hailing from other cities, do they feel the need to move, not necessarily physically, but to move even metaphorically maybe, towards the center, towards Ljubljana? Is it like that?
Yeah, you have to talk to Ljubljana, I think.
Why?
I don't know. There's a lot of support, funding for the arts that are all in Ljubljana. You know, the Ministry of Culture and stuff like that. It's all there, and it's kind of you're hoping for them to be benevolent towards you if you have a project in any other region. You know, you're like, hey Ljubljana, we're here too, can you help us out with stuff that we're doing? And they're like, okay, you're okay. You know, but you still have to kind of ask them. And if you go doing completely your own thing that nobody in Ljubljana knows about or hears about or even knows what it's about, then it's kind of hard to push through, I think.
You come from Ljubljana?
Close.
Close.
Yeah, it's Kran. 20 miles out.
Another thing which you already mentioned a little bit is smallness. Are you very conscious of the Slovene smallness? Is it something that bothers you? Is it something that you think about?
Not at all.
But you mentioned it before.
I don't know. I remember.
You just said because we were talking about geography. Fair enough.
Yeah.
We did it. So the smallness as regards to geography, does it not?
It was smallness in terms of people. You know, when you have a country with 60 million people, there's, in terms of, I don't know, building a national literature or national culture, there's really not a lot of burden on an individual, you know, and everybody can be like a bit more relaxed because things are going to happen in any case. But maybe in Slovenia, where there's not that many people, or in Malta, if a certain person doesn't do something, then nobody's going to come in and do it for him, you know, because there's just a certain amount of either poets or writers or painters or whatever, and if those individuals who feel the call to create don't, or are is it made impossible for them to create and stuff like that, then you get a silent culture much more quickly than in a huge nation, you know, which can afford to just, you know, keep things up.
Okay.
Maybe in that sense, but so maybe as a point of, I don't know, pride or something, you know, that I'm part of a small culture in terms of how many practitioners there are, and I still feel that I'm completely adequately equipped to deal with the world.
One of the things which also strikes me about Slovene writers is that many of them, when they describe themselves, when they talk about themselves, they say, I am a writer, or I'm a poet, and a translator, and a translator. This, how rich is the translation into Slovene, the culture of translating works into Slovene?
I think it's very rich, actually. When I was a kid, I never got into a situation where I would be like, oh, I want to read this, oh, but it's not translated. You know, all the classics, all the stuff that you're kind of exposed to while you're growing up, everything was available. And yeah, there's people joking about it now, you know, in Ljubljana, wherever you go out for a cup of coffee, there's bound to be 3 translators in the cafe, you know, so people do it, everybody, it's kind of a, I know, I like translating too. I do it to relax, because for me it's like, I don't know, solving crosswords.
Okay.
You know what you have to put, this is the word, and then you just find another meaning for it and write it down. So it's relaxing. And yeah, it turns out we have a lot of stuff.
But that means, okay, I know it's a hated word, but that means that there is a market for it. People read foreign literature and they read a lot of it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know, I don't have the data to like tell you, but yeah, people read stuff, yeah.
Is that influenced by the fact that Slovenia happens to be bordering with, you know, with Italy, and, you know, that it's a country which is bordering with other countries?
Well, don't you read here foreign literature?
No, we don't. But we'll discuss that later when you can see how much we read. The thing.
Yeah, it's okay.
The thing is, because really, this thing of translation is something which we are starting to experience only now, since we joined the union and what have you.
Oh, and maybe perhaps because everybody speaks English.
No, that's part of it.
Yeah,
yes.
You can get.
But also because as a nation we are one of the least that reads, so it's a totally different situation. Yes. But my question was the fact that Slovenia, being, as you described it, such a small country bordering with large countries, has this influenced the fact that many Slovenes read and they would like to read foreign literature translated into Slovene?
Yeah, I think that's a part of it. I mean, but it's like so much generalization and this you know, speaking out loud, whatever comes. But yeah, maybe there's this inferiority complex that makes Slovenes really take on impossible feats. You know, we have people who are now climbing the highest mountains, swimming the longest rivers, and we have had translations of the Iliad and stuff like that, you know, very early on, maybe because it's part of, you know, you acquire a skill and you look around yourself and it's like nobody else is going to do it if I'm not going to do it, and then you go and set out to translate the biggest book you can possibly find.
I know that soon one of your books will be published in English.
Yeah.
So I would like to ask you about translation now the other way around. How much of Slovene literature is being translated into other languages and published?
Again, I don't really know. As far as I can tell, there is a steady stream of translations in I know for English. A couple of the novelists and the poets I know have their books also out in English. but it's also contingent on the state grants and special events that are happening, like festivals and stuff like that. You know, it's not an entirely systematic affair, but I think we're slowly getting there. But the fact is, how much are we then read is a different question, because I don't know, the big book markets are still focused on, you know, the prestige or the I don't know, you translate a German author into English and then, you know, you get to experience the German soul today, and you want to experience the German soul because they're a big nation, but then you look at a Slovenian author and it's like, what's Slovakia, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
it gets a bit harder to just push through, you know, this is quality writing, this is, I don't know, a novel way of looking at the world or stuff like that, to really get readers who are still, when it comes to translated literature, more focused on this idealized idea of a nation.
I shall not be asking you about your writing, because I know that tomorrow you have another interview with Noel, and I'm sure that he's a better interviewer than me, and he will focus on your writing. But how important is it for you in the plural as Slovene writers, but also you in the singular, to be translated, to so to speak, make your presence felt in a wider spectrum of readership?
If I think that I have something to offer, that, you know, I've read so much from other cultures, and I think that I have a point of view or a way of seeing the world that I didn't find somewhere else, I feel completely entitled to, like, saying, you know, read this. This is going to be good for you.
But is it important for you to be read in English in the UK, possibly in the US? You know what I mean? How important is it to go outside of the Slovenian borders as a writer?
Well, then when it comes to me talking about my art, it's just like I'm a human being. I just want to communicate with as many people as possible. That's of course the primary objective when you're sitting down to write. When I sit down and write, I'm not like, this is something that I'm saying to those 2 million of Slovenes who will be able to read me, who are alive right now, but it's like I'm doing something, expressing myself as a living being in a certain, you know, ray of light, that I'm here, I have this chance, I just wanna express myself, I wanna talk, I wanna transform the world through me, the way I see it, the way I experience it, and just hope that it's gonna mean something to someone as much as books that I've read in my life meant to me, no matter where the guy was from or woman was from. Just, you know, when at a certain point in life, if you read the right book, it's a fantastic feeling, and we have to make as many books as possible so that all the moments in the life will have the right book for them.
Okay. Let me open the discussion to the floor. Maybe someone, do you need to pass on some microphone or something? I don't know what this microphone is here for.
Immanuel, just based on what you were saying about translating literature, exporting it, I'm very surprised, as an Italian living in Malta and working for the National Book Council, you know, how difficult sometimes it is in terms of exporting Maltese literature because of its being very much culturally rooted in the country, and how difficult it would be, or it could be, to translate it so that another audience in another country could appreciate it, not so much about the beauty of the language, but to understand even linguistic issues or cultural issues that a Maltese could appreciate in full, but a foreign audience might not. So my question for Jasmine is, how is it true for your book, or I don't want to talk about the whole literature of your country, but is it true, or is it different from what happens in Malta because of the different history of the country?
I think I understand the question. I think it's very much the same. Some books are really written about a specific experience that only the native speakers will be able to appreciate, fully. My book, as I said, I'm a child of the internet. I've always been in communication with the whole world since I was a little child. And I also see the world in global terms, and the way the book is written is kind of an interplay of this feeling of rootlessness, of just being adrift in the world, not being completely part of wherever you are, and wherever you are is somehow strange, and that was one of the points of the novel, which is why I consider it to have some, to give some insight into the Slovenian situation, but also not to be completely impenetrable for a foreign reader.
So the question that Immanuel was asking earlier, how important is it to be translated? It is actually really important, because when you're writing in the first place, you are already thinking of a larger audience than your own.
But as I said, it's how important is it to you? It's I don't know, it's a work of art. At a certain point, you put it out there, you publish it, and then it goes its own way. And of course, you just want it to be experienced by as many people as possible. But that's like, I don't know, that's a selfish artistry. And even if this happens in, 200 years, somebody picks it up from the dustbin and just flips through it, that's also a beautiful thing. So to be translated right now, to be focused on that, yes, I have to get translations, as many as possible. It's not the artistic side of me that's pushing for that. It's the basic human.
Any other question or comment? So let me ask you a couple of questions myself. When I asked you about how centralized the art scene is, and it focuses on, in Ljubljana mostly, not only but mostly, can you tell us something about the literature festivals that take place in Slovenia? I know there are quite a number.
Yeah, there are quite a few. We just had one ended. It's called Fabula Literary Festival. We had they always bring interesting guests. We had Terry Eagleton this year, I think. So yeah, there's a lot of going on in terms of, and we have Vilenica Malta is going to be a country in focus for this year, and we're all looking forward to that. In terms of cultural exchange, in terms of writers coming in to see our country, I think there's a lot going on in that sense. Obviously, it's always a point of contention also, it's like, why this one, why not something else, or, I have different aesthetics, maybe I would like to see somebody else, or whatever, but it's just generating discussion, which is always a plus side, especially when it comes to books, no matter how we talk about them, as long as we talk about them, and the more we talk about them, the better. That, and Slovenia is going to be a guest of honor for the Frankfurt 2022. This is also going to be a big thing for our literature. I think it's making a lot of literary people already a bit scared or already a bit ambitious, you know. So it's all a good thing, you know. They were just energized the arts. That's the point.
I'm trying to read my handwriting, which is not always very simple. So the fact that there are quite a number of festivals taking place. What is the relationship between writers and their readers in Slovenia?
That's a good question. I don't really know how to accurately reply to that. It's because those real readers tend to be quiet, you know, in the shadows, just, you know, go to a library, pick it up, never show up to literary events and stuff like that. So there's people who read a lot who don't want anything to do with you as a person.
Okay.
Which is, I think, the ideal relationship that an artist has with his audience. But there's also a lot of, you know, this ecosystem of readings and poetry readings and literary events that are happening, people that are coming in, and then there are little tribes being formed, and, you know, people are stick together with one tribe, then they fall out and they move to another, and kind of, you know, everybody knows each other in this literary scene. But I don't have an accurate idea on how that then works on the thing that's being written.
Are the social media drawing writers nearer to their readers, or it doesn't make any difference at all?
I'm sure it makes a difference. I don't exactly know what kind of a difference.
In your case, for example.
In my case, I'm not a big fan. I mean, social media is just another medium of artistry. You know, medium is the message. It's not the channel of communication. It is the communication itself, the way it's formed, and I'm having a big problem with, you know, every one of us being just a big blue and white Facebook square, you know, a person presented as a, you know, a human being with so many experiences, and everything being presented as on a flat screen which you can just scroll through. It's weird. In terms of reaching your audience, if you want to, you know, if you publish a book and nobody hears about it, you know, it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
And that helps in this regard. Or maybe if your publisher doesn't do the work that he should, then you can do it on your own. And it gives a lot of options also to literature. And as we're all in the business of trying to put literature in its rightful place at the top of every human endeavor, everything helps.
Okay. I'm going to ask you the last question. Yes, sure.
Yes, of course you haven't mentioned this yet, and I'm sure no one will ask you about it, and I know today's theme was really about literature, but anyway, now we were debating with this, so I can ask you this question.
Sure.
You've won a big prize, possibly the biggest prize in literature, right?
Still waiting for the Nobel.
Sure.
That's a bigger one.
But does this prize change something? I mean, Emma here also won this prize a couple.
So we can both answer.
Did this change anything? Does this make you somewhere in the map of Europe, or is it? Are you being more translated now because of this prize? Or
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's changed completely. Changed my world in terms of who I was as a writer. It completely changed the situation, which means I get to travel around. I get to, you know, come to Malta to talk to cool people about literature, and this has been happening to me ever since I won that. But
I know you don't like it because when we were in Latvia, you have told me, you know.
Yeah, I'm sad to say that being a writer to produce a novel takes. You have to feel very, very distanced from the world. You know, if the bigger the book it is, the larger the distance it is that you feel you have to cross. And if you're always in the center of things, if you're always moving around, it kind of dampens the will, the need for communication. And when I published the novel, I was just, okay, this really happened, this is amazing. And then I immediately went back to my room and started working on the next one. But then the reviews started coming in, people started calling me, things started happening. And it was just like, at first it was, yeah, well, this is interesting, this is really cool. And then this award happened and things got even bigger and bigger and bigger. And at a certain point I figured out that if I wanted to talk to the world again on my own terms, I'm going to have to go, you know, back far away.
Any other questions?
And for you, Immanuel, how was it winning the prize? But you're already
I always feel a bit baffled when I come to talk about it because I'm not so sure. I mean, the major translations of the book were not done through the European Union, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm not so sure that it gave me exposure to the rest of Europe. I don't know my colleagues who won the award after me, what's their situation.
Mm-hmm.
But I really don't know. I really don't know what to say about it. My impression is that it does help, but only to a certain extent. I don't know.